All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to American Advocates. At this point, I should probably just start keeping track of what episode number this is on because I've been going live pretty much every day, but I don't know what episode it is. I'll get back to everyone on that. I'll be announcing episode numbers. Welcome regardless, though. I see if there's viewers waiting. Appreciate you. Be sure to like the stream if you haven't already. It helps the stream perform well in the algorithm when you do. Also, subscribe if you haven't already. We're going to be discussing Trump's approval rating as of February 12th, 2026. It is collapsing in real time. President Donald Trump's approval rating, it's collapsing. Some polls now showing him as low as 36%, according to what I was seeing with certain pollsters. And unfortunately, even some of the more right-leaning pollsters out there are now confirming that President Donald Trump is losing approval support with many voters. What I have down here, Biden. This was perhaps the most disheartening title you could read as a Trump voter, as a MAGA supporter, as a conservative in general. And it came, unfortunately, from a pollster that I really respect in the form of Rasmussen Reports, headed up by Mark Mitchell. And this is a pollster that Trump has actually shouted out on occasion, both during speeches and on his social media. Rasmussen Reports is... Mark Mitchell would tell you it's not, he's a centrist because of pollster purposes. He doesn't really take a side, but he's right-leaning and everyone knows it. And the fact of the matter is, according to Rasmussen Reports, Biden is now officially more popular than President Trump, according to not just Rasmussen, but several different pollsters now that have also chimed in with these poll results. Rasmussen's the one that I respect the most. They've been one of the most accurate pollsters over the last 20 years, and you can look up their proven track record when it comes to predicting election outcomes and how accurate they've been. So I'm going to stick mostly to the Rasmussen Reports results when it comes to this, but one of the most accurate pollsters in the form of Rasmussen shows that 48% of Americans now officially think that Biden has done a better job as president than President Trump is currently doing, where only 40% on the Rasmussen Reports poll it show that Americans think Trump has done a better job than Biden did. Very disheartening. This is a conservative pollster showing this. Hey, Glenn, welcome, man. Glory to America or get the fuck out. Yeah, exactly. America first. America first or move somewhere else. Can't stand the people that live in this country that don't put America first. And the American apologists. Oh, I feel so guilty for being an American. No, not here we don't. We love this country. Anyways, back on track. CNN's Harry Enten, another guy that I actually really like to turn to when it comes to data and polls. Harry Enten delivers quite a charismatic approach to polling and numbers and data, and also brings a lot of good energy. I've always said, I think Harry Enten's in the closet. And when I say that, I mean, I think he's a closet Republican. Because the way he reports is not typical for CNN reporting. It's not what you would expect. There's not really a left-leaning slant in that guy. And so Harry Enten now has concluded that Trump's base, it gets even worse, right? Because this is what Harry Enten reported. Trump's base amongst non-college voters. This is the base that Trump prides himself in winning over. This is the base that the Democrats foolishly always make fun of. They go, oh, Trump loves the uneducated. Trump loves the non-college voters. Yeah, he does. And to be honest with you, the non-college voters make up the majority of people or a large portion of America that the Democrats foolishly condescend to and underplay when it comes to the workforce and when it comes to anything in general. A lot of billionaires and millionaires don't tend to have a college degree. That's for a purpose. That's for a reason. It's because there's an institutionalized element to our education that is now more harmful, in my opinion, when it comes to the Americans educating themselves than it is beneficial. Nevertheless, wherever you stand on it, it doesn't matter. You must simply recognize and acknowledge the fact that the non-college educated voters out there is an important demographic to win. Trump has historically done very well with them. And in 2024, Trump won them by 14 points over Kamala. He was up plus 14 with non-college educated voters over Kamala. However, according to CNN, Harry Enten's reports here, as of right now, February 2026, Trump is now -9 with non-college educated voters. His approval with non-college educated voters is collapsing. So that's huge right there, honestly. That correlates with the fact that now 48% of Americans say that Biden did a better job than Trump is currently doing, according to Rasmussen Reports. Can't emphasize that enough. That's a right-wing leaning conservative pollster, in my opinion. Mark Mitchell, the head of Rasmussen, would tell you otherwise, but you go look at that guy's X account and you'll see he's very right-wing leaning. And 48%, according to his poll, show that Biden did a better job than Trump is doing, whereas only 40% think Trump has done a better job than Biden did. Very depressing day if you're a conservative. And it honestly, again, goes to point out the fact that I said yesterday, for instance, where it defies all logic, in my opinion, that Trump is currently in this position, especially as an outsider looking in. The answers are so obvious when it comes to what Trump could or should be doing in order to fix this. I mean, honestly, I just, it's like the most tone deaf approach I've ever seen. It's mind numbingly like impossible to comprehend how this is happening, other than the fact that Trump just clearly doesn't care about fulfilling the campaign promises, all of which are now more popular than he is currently. So he needs to get focused and aggressive on bringing costs down. I'm going to get to that, Glenn. I'm going to get to that. By the way, Glenn, I saw all your chats. I rewatched some of my live stream last night. I saw all of your chats, and I was like, "Oh, I can't believe I missed Glenn in the chat. I can't believe I didn't see any of that." But I'm glad you're here again tonight. Darth Ray 1969 says, "Here is the thing. I made a fortune off college-educated people. If you can't turn off your water meter, sit down." Yeah, man, I'm with you. I'm with you. Honestly, I preach that a lot now too when it comes to America and the future. The future is going to be in trades for Americans because college now is overpriced and it's also oversaturated. It may have been a great thing to get a college degree in the 70s and 80s when conveniently, of course, college was much more affordable and also much less breached by feminism and liberal ideology. But nowadays, that's all that it is. And they expand these campuses into these small level cities at this point, but it's all full of bullshit buildings that teach you gender studies and, music theory, which is not actually bad, but I make fun of it because it's like, nowadays, like, no offense, but what are you going to do with music, a doctorate in music nowadays? As much as I play guitar, as much as I love music, come on now, let's get serious. If you're going to be a theater major, if you're going to have a doctorate in music, if you're going to go for gender studies or, black history or whatever it is they teach, you're not going to go far in life, and you're going to be in debt tens of thousands of dollars for essentially nothing. Whereas trades are going to be increasingly more useful, especially as AI now is being developed and replacing people at what seems to be a record pace. So you have, all of these white collar jobs are going to get replaced by AI. I've already experienced this. I've called into several places, and I actually prefer the AI operator as opposed to the Indian guy from overseas who I can't even understand. The AI speaks better English and solves my problems faster. There's no way around this. Whereas blue-collar jobs, the factory work is not going to be replaced for a little while. Eventually, I'm sure we'll get more robots that do that. But things like electricians, plumbers, HVAC, those are going to be steady. And they pay good, too, on top of it. Not to go off on a rant there. The whole point of this is Trump's approval rating. But nevertheless, 41%. Yeah, it dipped down to 41%. Rasmussen has them back up at 45, I think, but Rasmussen had them at 41%, which is the lowest since 2017. That's his lowest approval rating since 2017. Other pollsters are showing them now at 36%. And those are left-leaning pollsters, so they're not to be trusted. But, when you have a right-leaning pollster as well, it's like, well, you can't really, just because you like the way it sounds better doesn't mean you can lean towards that 100% either. Don't know what the fuck you're talking about. All right, simmer down there, okay? No need to cry. Trump isn't conservative at all. He's still pretty conservative on some stuff, but, well, thank God I'm a concrete finisher. Exactly, concrete finisher, another great one. We're going to need people like you. We need more men in those fields. Who gives a fuck? It's all about money. It's all about power, and you ain't ever going to have enough of either to make a difference in this world. That's not true at all, actually. I literally own businesses now, and I'm working towards building the kind of wealth that will give me power, actually. And when I have that power, I will wield it. I blocked this dumb channel. Why am I hearing this guy's stupid opinions? Well, farewell, then. In 30 years, we will work for the robots. I disagree. Anyways, although a lot of us will. but I disagree. I don't think all of us will. Anyways, 62% of Americans now, according to a lot of these polls, now are showing that they disapprove of the job Trump is doing as of February 8th, according to the polls, according to AP News. It's not great with Rasmussen either, but it's a lot better. Rasmussen is showing 45% approval as opposed to 53% disapproval, although that's the worst since 2017 regardless. And so it's still not looking good. Trump has been on the decline since I would say about March or April of last year. That's the reality of this. Why is Trump collapsing? That's what I want to talk about today when it comes to his approval rating. The bad news, the MAGA people, I'll say this before I even go into this. I've noticed this. Now that I'm taking this approach to politics, now that I'm not here to just glaze President Trump like I was doing back in March and April and May of last year, because I genuinely liked the stuff Trump was doing back then. But now that I'm here to give people the real deal, I've realized something. MAGA supporters, in large part, are just as big of a pussy when it comes to crybaby behavior online and when it comes to sycophant-like support as the liberals are. So it's time for us all to grow up. It's time for us all to stop discrediting what they want us to believe are our lying eyes. It's time for us to see politics for what it really is. It's time for us to see the situation for what it really is, okay? You can sit in my chat all you want and you can say, oh, you have TDS. I don't have TDS. I voted for Trump. I want Trump to do well. I liked what Trump was doing in the first 4 months of his term. Now, everything's different. Trump hasn't done anything good in the last 6 or 7 months other than Venezuela, which I'll actually briefly touch on again on this stream. But overall, I don't know how you can support anything he's been doing since I'd say about August or September. It's a train wreck now. And his approval rating is starting to show that even amongst conservative pollsters like Rasmussen, where Rasmussen was forced to report that 48% of Americans think Biden did a better job than Trump is doing, as opposed to 40% thinking Trump is doing a better job than Biden did. The numbers just don't support it anymore. So wake the fuck up. Bro is a plant. That's correct. Israel's paying me $7,000 per stream. I just want to put that out there right now. I get paid $7,000 per stream to feed all of you guys propaganda, you fucking goyim. You fucking goyim. Look at you all in the chat typing away for free. You can't even afford super chats. You're typing away for free. You can't stand it. But I get paid $7,000 per stream. And from Russia, I make an additional $3,000. And that's not rupees, okay? So I'm getting paid $10,000 a day to shit on Trump. You're right. You're completely right. All of you are right. I'm not here speaking anything I genuinely believe. I am the fakest, most insincere motherfucker on the internet. I am just here to rag. Trump's doing a wonderful job. We're in the golden age. You guys are so fucking stupid, honestly. It reminds me of George Carlin. It really does. George Carlin reminds everybody that it's like 50% of Americans are stupid, and that should remind you that the other half of that are even dumber than that, where it's like, everyone's really dumb, and this chat always proves it. Like, no offense. There's some good ones in there. Glenn's a good one. Not Jeff the Red. What's up, man? You should be home in Tel Aviv. Oh, I wish. I wish I was in Tel Aviv. I kissed the wall so much there. George Carlin. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. Yeah, exactly. I'm left-leaning. Both our sides are frustrated with the... Yeah, that's true. You're going to probably wind up hating me if you stay tuned in if you're left-leaning, because I'm super conservative. But we can find the common ground right now, the P Ninja. I do agree with that. I think a lot of moderate Democrats feel exiled from their party, and rightfully so. But at this point in time, I don't know how you can be supporting this Trump administration currently. You can support his campaign promises. They're all more popular than he currently is. And that's what I'm going to cover here. Why is Trump collapsing? I've identified 4 main reasons. Firstly, the economy. Secondly, immigration. Third, law and order. And fourth, foreign policy. All of those are going to be discussed on this episode. All of these have been discussed at length already on this channel, which is why you should like this stream right now. It helps the stream perform well in the algorithm, which already hates me for being America first, loving my fucking country, talking about Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, talking about putting God first, being a nationalist, all of that jazz. If you support that, like the stream, subscribe to American Advocates for more. But let's go over immigration. The immigration policy first. A massive disparity that we've been witnessing with President Donald Trump in comparison with what he promised us on the campaign trail and in reality, what we're actually getting. So Trump campaigned on mass deportations. And I did some research on this literally just a few minutes ago before going live here. I wanted to know where Americans in general stood when it comes to mass deportations, immigration reform policy, etc. As of what I could find, 75% of conservatives approve of mass deportations. Still, right now, currently. 60% approve of mass deportations among likely voters. And when you throw in all of the Democrats and independents, you get the number that's more around 46 to 51%, according to what I could find. So either a slim majority or a small minority only approve of mass deportations currently. And that's large in part because of the poor messaging centered around deportations and what unfolded, unfortunately, with people like Alex Preddy and Renee Good. I don't consider those deaths a tragedy here, and I think the logic is incredibly flawed when independents lose their spine on mass deportations, and even some Democrats, because at one point, even when you threw in Democrats, the number was locked in as at a solid 60 to 65% of overall Americans approving of mass deportations. There's a deep-seated recognition here that these immigrants are taking away our jobs as Americans. They're driving up the cost of prices, by the way. They're taking up space somewhere, so that's rent prices, home prices, etc., going up in part because of them as well. And so Americans have always recognized this. The Democrat Party has always recognized this until Trump got reelected, and truthfully until Biden got elected, because they wanted the open borders to allow them to flood in and replace us slowly, which is all going to be factored in on the 2030 census count. But if you go back to the Obama administration, if you go back to Hillary Clinton on the campaign trail against Trump in his first term, and if you go back before that, you have Bush and Clinton, this was always bipartisan. Everyone identified, at the very least, the issue of illegal aliens in this country. Only recently is it now a massive differentiation between parties. But the Alex Good shit, the logic doesn't add up. When you take a look at Alex Preddy and Renee Good, and you understand that two white people, martyred themselves on behalf of immigrants that don't care about them and never will. You don't see Somalians in the street protesting over Renee Good being mag dumped in the face, nor do you see them in the street over Alex Preddy being shot in the back 10 times. And so the logic doesn't add up, but unfortunately, a lot of people don't have a spine in this country when it comes to mass deportations. They pictured in their mind, when they said they approved of it, a neat and organized process where Trump gets elected and declares mass deportations. And I think they, honest to God, pictured, you picture a Joe Rogan type who's a moderate leftist. He was for this at first. Now he's radically against it. He thinks ICE goes too far. And then you picture a Joe Rogan type, and you picture these kind of moderate voters, these independents and slightly left-leaning voters. I swear, I think they must have assumed that people would just organize themselves into categories. Yeah, I think they thought illegal aliens would all round themselves up in a neat single-file line to an ICE facility center to turn themselves in and raise their hand. I'm here illegally, deport me. It was never going to work this way. We have the self-deportation numbers, which look good. I believe they've come in at, what is it, 500,000 or 1 million or maybe even more than that, because Trump is paying them close to $3,000 to leave this country. So, of course, amongst the ranks of illegal aliens, you have a few good ones out there, a large amount of them, in all honesty, that want to do the right thing, and they want to regain access to America the legal way. And they recognize they're placing that at jeopardy, because the promise is, if we catch you here illegally, you're deported and never allowed back in. So a lot of them have deported themselves on our dime, which is fair in all honesty, unfortunately, because $3,000 to get these people out of our country will save us so much more in the long run. Nevertheless, what actually is happening is you have a lot of desperate people that do not, under any circumstances, want to leave America, the greatest nation in the world. There's a reason they snuck in here. They're desperate. And so as a result of that, it was always going to play out this way. It was never going to be a completely peaceful process. We are talking about literally 24 million illegal immigrants at least in this country. The number's likely higher when you factor in just how many years now have gone by where people have snuck across the border. We have tens of millions of illegal aliens in this country currently. It was always going to play out that way. It's just a mathematical equation at that point. When you're dealing with that vast amount of illegal aliens, some of them are going to get violent. Worse yet, you have idiotic 67 IQ, not Somalians. I know you're thinking, when you hear 67 IQ, I know many of you in chat think, oh, he's about to talk about Somalians. Well, that's true. They are that stupid. But no, I'm talking about, unfortunately, liberal white people, especially the fucking women in this country. The absolutely retarded liberal white women who literally decide that deportations are too mean, and America owes it to these people to allow them to stay, to have a chance at a better life. It's absurd, and they're easily gaslit and galvanized by their own party, the Liberal Party, to create what is called a color revolution, which is what Tim Walz, Mayor Jacob Frey, and people like Gavin Newsom, for instance, have been trying to do to Trump his entire second term so far. They literally encourage and galvanize their voter base to take to the streets to disrupt ICE agents, which are federal law enforcement agents, disrupt them in their duties. And this, of course, increases the chances mathematically of more violence happening. And what a color revolution is it banks on violence outbreaking during these kind of mass civil protests. It banks on them turning into riots, getting violent, and then weaponizing the violence that occurs to then topple the current administration in power. That's the premise, a simplified layman's term premise of a color revolution. And that's what's been happening. And so with this immigration now, we have not been getting what we were promised when it comes to this Trump administration. Mass deportations are still largely popular, at the very least with conservatives, but even with likely voters sitting at 60% very likely. So a lot of Americans still support this, and more would support it if the messaging was controlled better by this administration. But it hasn't been, and they don't have control over the messaging. And they don't really even have that solid of a plan when it comes to implementing mass deportations. You know, what we've seen instead is Greg Bovino, the commander at large of Border Patrol, now pulled out of Minnesota after the protests and riots were taking place there for weeks on end, anti-ICE protests and riots. They were spray painting windows. They were breaking windows of hotels. They were storming hotels where they figured ICE agents were spending the night. They were taking to the streets, causing violence. This is really where Trump needed to invoke the Insurrection Act. And I've said this before. The way to handle this is to crush the movement outright. Because these protests, if all it was them standing outside of their local government buildings with a picket, screaming and hooting and hollering, that's a protest. But what is not a protest is when signal group chats emerge with hundreds of people active in them, hundreds of liberals active in them, some of whom are very clearly government employees that have the ability to run license plates. And then they're giving that feedback to street level liberal protesters and rioters out there in the signal group chat. That's an ICE agent. Follow him and harass him, impede his ability to do his job. That, of course, that's an insurrection. That's the color revolution. That's an insurrection. And that is basically almost a war level threat at that point, especially because the will of the people, the reason why Trump is in as president right now is because he was voted in on a mandate. He won the popular vote. And part of his mandate, a large part of it, is immigration reform. Nevertheless, this went unchecked. This administration, largely toothless. This DOJ, completely toothless, and at worst case, very likely complicit in sabotaging the Trump administration and its agendas. And so you had these people doing this. There's been no real consequences for them. And rather than invoking the Insurrection Act, we have President Donald Trump only ever threatening to do so on Truth Social, never following through on it, when he should have done it. He should have invoked it. He should have then declared martial law, flooded Minnesota and Minneapolis with 10,000 soldiers backing up the ICE agents. And under martial law, he should have declared a curfew. And during that curfew time, that's when you go door to door and you knock on doors and you check papers. And anybody who's not here legally gets immediately shackled, carried away in a van, and sent to Alligator Alcatraz, where a judge can go visit them at the side of their cell and verify if they're here legally or not. And if they're not, you deport them out of this country back to their home country. And if their home country won't take them, they are very clearly very comfortable being in another country that they don't belong to. That's at that point where you send these motherfuckers anywhere. Sub-Saharan Africa. Send them there. Deport them out of this country, though. That's the bottom line. That's how this administration should have handled this. I agree with you, says Divine 7777. Yeah, the thing is, this administration's toothless because Trump is great at deal making. He's great at negotiations, but power, sometimes the raw deal, the real deal when it comes to power, when it comes to situations like this, is it's not supposed to be a negotiation. Sometimes power is to be strictly wielded, not negotiated. But Trump negotiates everything. So what we saw instead out of Minnesota was Tim Walz and Mayor Jacob Frey negotiating with the president after literally inflaming their own citizens to go out and aggregate against ICE, to go out and literally disrupt ICE agents in their duties. We then had Tim Walz negotiating with Trump at a national level, making demands to the president. The same guy who's literally the governor of the state where it's proven now that Somalians have literally sent billions of dollars, defrauded their state of billions of dollars, and sent it back to Somalia. This is the guy that Trump negotiated with. It should have never come down to negotiations. Trump should have told him exactly what was going to happen. But instead, Tim Walz made these negotiations. He made these demands. The protests kept heating up. And the fact of the matter is, it worked. 700 agents are now being pulled out of Minnesota for no other reason other than Trump just deciding it's gone too far. We can't risk this because it's the midterms. The midterms are hanging over the Republicans' head now. And that really is the whole point of all of this in truth. That's why we're seeing this radical change now. The Republicans want to win the midterms. And the funny thing is, all of the actions they're taking now to try to regain popularity heading into them is going to make them more unpopular with their voter base and weaken the morale of their voter base. They're going to wind up losing it anyway. And so what we're seeing now is 700 agents being pulled out. Greg Bovino pulled out of Minnesota, sent back to California, where he very likely is going to retire, aka soft fired. He's going to be soft fired. Tom Homan's there now for cleanup, to clean up the messaging. And now they're giving us the worst first messaging, which is a cop-out. The worst first mattered more last year, and it was a good approach to immigration at first, but now they're leaning more heavily on the worst of the worst first, and that's the excuse to not follow through on mass deportations. Because what this country actually needs is all illegal aliens deported out of America. But we're not going to get that now. And they're leaning on the worst first because they don't want you to realize that we're not going to get the everyday illegal alien deported out of this country. In fact, quite the opposite, according to the reports I've been looking at. Trump, for instance, and this is even before all of this was happening, need I remind you of the disastrous Laura Ingraham interview where Trump was pro-work visa immigration, literally on record saying we need the Indian H-1B visa holders to continue coming into this country because Americans aren't smart enough to do some of the jobs that the Indians are doing. And I say this all the time, Indians, when you look at India and you look at videos of what happens there, they eat shit. There's literally a video I saw of an Indian woman sitting Indian style on a dirt road with a big bowl of steaming cow shit, and she literally face plants into it and starts eating it like it's the best thing she's ever fucking tasted. She picks her head up, her face is covered in shit, and she insists it's delicious. Those are the people smarter than Americans. They throw their trash in their river as a form of worship to a false god. It pollutes their rivers. Their rivers are full of parasites and fungus and all kinds of nasty shit. Their country looks like shit. They barely have any paved roads. Their buildings look like shit. But somehow, according to this Trump administration, Indians need to be coming into this country on their H-1B visas because they're smarter than Americans. If they were smarter than us, would not their country look as good or better than ours? But that's the messaging of this Trump administration. Even worse, he would go on to talk about Chinese students coming in and how our colleges depend on Chinese students coming in to stay afloat. When the fact of the matter is, this is supposed to be a free market capitalist society. If a college can't stay afloat without foreign students, maybe that college deserves to go out of business. That's how free market capitalism is supposed to work. As if colleges going out of business would be a bad thing anymore at this point in time. Like I stated earlier, colleges are just liberal indoctrination camps at this point overall. And we have enough doctors and lawyers in this country. We need more tradesmen, actually. At worst case scenario, or best case scenario, some of these colleges that wouldn't be able to stay afloat without Chinese students could economize, which would be great for them. Time for them to close down certain things like gender studies or black history degrees or whatever it is that they teach nowadays. Get back to the basics of what made college great in the 80s. But that's not going to happen because this administration seems to be okay with allowing foreign students in. many of whom, not all, but a good percentage of them turn out to be Chinese spies. That's been proven. So Trump hasn't even always been very anti-immigration overall. He believes, I think, in general, that we need to deport illegal immigrants and that Americans should be put first. But when you look at his first term even, the border wall, that was what Trump was known for the most. We still don't have that, and we're not going to get it. The border wall, I've looked into the price that it would cost, $16 billion to $18 billion to do a full southern border wall. When you look at what this government's spending money on, that shouldn't be a problem. But for some reason, we don't have a border wall, and everybody has actually pretty much dropped that subject. Mexico was supposed to pay for it originally. Everyone's just forgotten about that one. So, no, Trump's never been super anti-immigration, but he at least campaigned on mass deportations, and it looked like we were going to get that at first. But when you look at the raw number, which I have written down here, the raw numbers are terrible. So as of February 2026, I have written down here, the Department of Homeland Security website shows that roughly 675,000 illegal immigrants have been deported. And even this number isn't really the pure deportation number when you look at strictly internal deportations. Because the problem is a lot of deportations are from turnarounds, turnaways, meaning they approach the southern border, they approach some sort of border, they're caught immediately, and they're sent back. And they're like, no, you cannot enter. That counts as a deportation. And so it's a very misleading number when you look at it. The actual number is very likely closer to only 238,000 illegal immigrants have been rounded up internally in America and deported through the process. That is way too low. Now, you have the self-deportations, which I already mentioned. That number was pretty high right off the bat. People took Trump seriously when he became president at first. But even factoring that in and understanding that that's going to taper off over time, you understand that we'll be lucky if 1 million illegal immigrants on this trajectory are deported by the time Trump is done in office. And the fact of the matter is that number should be closer to about 5 million in order for us to be able to look at this Trump administration and claim that it was successful in mass deportations, in order for us to be able to look at it and say that put a dent into the illegal alien count. And it just doesn't seem like we're going to get that at all. Now they're, of course, backing off, like I said, and they're claiming only the worst of the worst because the midterms are coming up, and they don't like the look of an Alex Preddy or Renee Good dying. The logic doesn't make sense, by the way. 2 white people martyr themselves over Somalians, and now all of a sudden 24 illegal aliens in this country aren't going to get deported because 2 white people died. It's so stupid. I saw one chat say, breathe, dude. I'm going to take a breath. I'm going to drink some water. I'll take a look at some chats, too, before I keep going here. You need a joint, bro, says Meta Kill Beats. I don't smoke weed. Weed is for losers. Wait, what's this now? Glenn says, Purdy, we heard the joke the first 55 times you said it. Why? What's going on? Is he spamming? Oh, yeah. Wait a minute. Did you spam that? What woman? Hold on. Is he spamming shit or not? Oh, no. He's just shit talk. He's allowed to shit talk. As long as you don't spam, Purdy, you're allowed in here. I don't care. Purdy's a spammer. I don't know. Honestly, listen, the chats boost the algorithm, so they can talk all this shit. I don't know who Purdy is, you know? Like, his opinions don't really matter. He's just a useful goyim in this chat. Like, the chats help the algorithm, so he's allowed in here. You need to start talking to the people you hate in good faith, says the P Ninja 2265. I disagree. I'm not really concerned with what the people, well, yeah, do I hate? Yeah, I do hate a lot of liberals, actually. Yeah, I would say that, but no, I don't really want to talk with them. They're too far gone, in my opinion. What do you think about building 4 immigration ports like Ellis Island to the west, north, south, and east and let people in legally? Definitely not. No more immigration in this country. I think we need to shut down the immigration in this country for the next 20 years. And we need to fix all the shit that we have wrong with this country domestically while we do that. And then we need to honestly strike down the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965 that was signed by Lyndon Johnson, because that is the immigration act that really changed America for the worst. Before the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, 91% of America was white. And all of a sudden, coincidentally, around the time of the hippie era, when feminism was emerging, liberal ideology was getting more popular, then we decided, oh, we should really allow third world country immigration in here. We owe it to these people to give them a better life. I don't subscribe to that ever. Immigration's not about helping other people. Immigration is about letting people into this country who can serve us and who can help make America better. And when you allow third worlders into this country, you get nothing but a disaster. In fact, the welfare stats and data actually show this. You look at these immigrants that come into this country, and so many of them wind up living off of welfare. Afghans, for instance, I can't remember the exact number, but it's the majority of Afghans that come into this country wind up living off of food stamps and welfare programs. My opinion is this: if you come into this country legally and you wind up living off of welfare, it's time for you to have your citizenship or work visa revoked and pulled, and it's time for you to be deported out of this country permanently. You're not here to leech off our system. We're not here because we owe you a better life. You're here to make something of your life if you can. And living off of welfare suggests that you're an incapable pleb who doesn't belong in America and is only going to be a leech and a detriment to this country. I'm America first, bitch. I'm a fucking nationalist, and I want Americans to do well. We're looking at the rest of the world. We're looking at these disgusting third world hellhole, shithole countries like Somalia. Look how that turned out for us. They defraud the state and send the money back to their country. That's our money. That's taxpayer dollars leaving and going to help another country that is full of pirates. We don't owe them anything. And I don't care about them. And for all I care, I never want to see another third world immigrant in this country ever again. Before 1965, I believe the number was 98.5% of immigrants coming into this country were coming from European countries or Britain. Okay. Now we have the white population down to 57.5% majority. It was at 91% pre-1965. Any coincidence that the 60s was really kind of the start of the downfall of America? You know, the 90s was called the last great decade, right? Is there any coincidence that people now say that America's not the greatest nation in the world anymore, or that there's a lot of issues in our country now? I don't think it's a coincidence, and I think all of the data supports that. Okay. Now, the economy. That's what I wanted to cover next. We can move off of the immigration. The bottom line with immigration is Trump's immigration reform policies that he campaigned on are still more popular than he is currently because he's not delivering on his promises. What I want to do is I want to move on to the Trump economy now. First and foremost, also be sure to like the stream if you haven't already and subscribe to American Advocates for more. So the Trump economy, this is where also a lot of everyday Americans are feeling let down. The Trump economy with inflation's cooling slightly. It was at 3% when Trump took office. It's now been cooled to about 2.7%, and it's holding steady there. But groceries, for instance, I point this one out the most because I think this is where Americans really feel the economy on a weekly or sometimes monthly basis, depending on how you do your shopping. But for groceries, that is like the first and lowest level indicator to Americans of how good the economy is. Meanwhile, you have Trump focusing on stuff like the stock market, which I'll get to in a little bit. Groceries are where we feel it. And prices are up 2.4% in the last 12 months overall. I have listed here, orange juice, for instance, has gone up 28%. Ground beef is up 15%. Bacon and chicken are also up too. And Trump campaigned on bacon, okay? But bacon is still outrageously expensive. The only one that you saw go down a lot was eggs. And as I explained last night, eggs only were up that high because of Biden. He culled 110 million chickens 4 days before Trump was sworn in, which, of course, when you eliminate that many chickens, the egg prices are going to go through the roof. So all it took was reproducing more chickens to lay more eggs, and the prices were, of course, going to come down. We were only in that mess because of Biden, and that was all intentional. That was a small, spiteful sabotage on Biden's part. But a lot of these prices really haven't come down at all. And so the fact of the matter is, this Trump economy is not delivering when it comes to the everyday American. On top of that, real wages grew 1% over the past year. And while that's not terrible, it's not really enough to make it feel like Americans are living in a golden age or make it feel like Americans have more spending power. When you have prices going up 2.4% in the last 12 months and real wages only increasing by 1%, it's really just enough for Americans to still feel like they're not drowning, but it doesn't really allow Americans to feel like they're getting ahead. And that's a big problem as well. The rent, that's another one where a lot of Americans feel this. Rent is down 1.4% since last year. Again, it's not terrible, but it's really also not enough to where Americans feel like they can live comfortably. The average median national rent rate right now is $1,393. That is still very high, in all honesty. When I was a kid, for instance, and of course, this was 20 years ago. I was a little kid, 25 years ago. I was a real little kid, and I wound up asking my parents at the time. They rented out an entire half of a duplex, a 2-story duplex, half of it. And they paid, at the time, I believe the number was $450 a month for that. And when I was a little kid, that felt like a whole house. Now the average median rent rate is $1,393. That is insane. And the fact of the matter is, when you factor in the housing market, the average median home price is currently sitting at $396,800. And that, truthfully, is for a home in a subpar neighborhood. If you want a home in a good, safe neighborhood, you're going to be paying well into the $400,000 range, and in some cases, the $500,000 range. So the housing market, young people are priced out. They're going to be forced to rent. The rent is still very high. And then on top of it, cost of living went up 2.4%, while real wage growth only grew by 1%. So this Trump economy, he focuses on the stock market, but when you pull your focus out of Wall Street and move it back to Main Street where the rest of us live, you understand this is not a golden age like Trump is saying that it is. It's just not. And at the end of the day, the problem is, Trump doesn't even understand that. He's so detached from that. It's such a tone-deaf approach, this administration. Oh, we're in a golden age. The stock market's doing great. The Dow hit 50,000. It's now back down today, of course. Yeah, the stock market's doing great, but I've got some data on that as well. Actually, first, though, I wanted to list this. Home prices are up 0.9% since last year. We've had the highest January on record for the housing market home prices. The under 35 demographic is still rate locked, by the way. We're still not able to own homes, under 35ers. And the average median home buyer, I point this one out a lot too, because it's honestly super important to understand this. The people who are buying homes 20 years ago are the same people buying homes now. There's no room for young people to own homes. The average median age home buyer 20 years ago was age 39. 20 years later, fast forward to today, the average age median home buyer is age 59. That's terrible. And what we're seeing is boomers are the ones that are now buying and selling homes to each other. They're pulling equity out of the home that they bought for 17 grand because it's now worth 581,000. So they pull that equity out. They buy a vacation home in Florida or Texas or Arizona, and then they own 2 homes while millennials still can't own a home. And Gen Zers are looking at the market and they're thinking, I'm never going to own a home. And that's the problem here. So Trump's approval rating with the economy, also in the high 30% only. That's for a reason. What I have too, Trump focuses too much on the stock market. So some of the data here, actually, I'll take a look at some chats again real fast before I talk about the stock market and Trump's approach to the economy. Okay, Purdy, you're out of here. You're deported, Purdy. ICE is going to come and smash your fucking face right into the cement. Right into the cement. You're deported, Purdy. You're going to Alligator Alcatraz, where the mosquitoes will bite you relentlessly. But I've seen you say the same shit now like 18,000 times. I don't know if you wanted me to acknowledge it so you can now jerk off. Oh my God, the streamer saw my chat. Oh, go tell both your mommies that you got kicked off of the stream. I'm sure both your moms will be proud of you. But you're deported, man. You can't keep spamming the same stuff, right? Like, you just can't. So, Like, I get it. I get it. Oh, 300 pounds and fat. Oh, he lives in his car. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Glenn says, bye-bye. Glenn, I'm going to wind up needing you to be a moderator, I think, in this chat. I think it's about time that we have an enforcer in this chat so that they can manage so that I can manage all of the illegal alien scum here at American Advocates. Some of these swine need to go, Glenn, I think, don't you? And I can bench over 3. I benched close to 400, so it's awesome. I'm just wearing a jacket, okay? It's a little cold out. I live in my car. I sleep in the trunk. It's freezing out, all right? You know what I mean? Like, it's cold out when you live in your car when you're homeless like I am, okay? When you're a homeless YouTuber that gets paid on YouTube and owns a business, and you own a business and you work 2 jobs, you tend to live in your car in this Trump economy, and it's freezing, so I have to wear a jacket. It makes me look a little chubby. What can I say? He's not bald. I'm leaving the skull cap on, though. That's going to remain a mystery. Somebody says hairline reveal for 20 likes. No, hairline reveal at 100 likes. I'll hairline reveal at 100 likes. I'm in a good neighborhood. My mortgage is under 500 and I pay 89,000. Says, my purple tennis ball. Okay. Well, when did you buy your house? God, this boomer when I was young. I'm literally not a boomer. I'm literally on the youngest end of the millennial spectrum. Like, dude, so many stupid people out here. That's been the most eye-opening thing about live streaming like this is just seeing the chats. Like, I can't believe, like, it's got to be bots. Like, some of these people have to be AI bots. They have to be. Your sweater is a 4XL. It's pretty big. I think it's a 2X. And it's like big. It's like a big sweater. But I mean, fuck, look at these shoulders. God, you guys would kill for the level of strength that I have. You'd actually finally feel like a man. Too bad you guys just don't have the testosterone for it. You know, it is what it is. I paid $89,000 6 years ago. You paid $89,000 what, for a house? You expect me to believe that, unicorn mullet? I think you're trolling. Charlie Kirk is black now. Oh man. No house has been 89,000 since the boomers. Yeah, I don't know. That's a troll. That is rage bait for sure. I mean, what are you in, Section 8 housing? Like, what the fuck? Where'd you get that house? Did you buy it foreclosed and then fix it up? Like, there's no way. I'm 6'3", 220, and bench close to 500, and I'm natty. Yeah, okay. Like, I'm going to believe that. I just want to kiss my fish. Are you making fun of the TPUSA concert? Because that was ridiculous. I'm early. Hopefully you can work in... Oh, hey, 2009 Lifeguard. Welcome, man. Hope you can work in the Josh Hawley, Keith Ellison exchange today. I didn't get to read about... I saw something going down about that. I guess it was about fraud. Maybe I'll work that in tomorrow. Okay. Let's cover the Trump stock market here, because this is where Trump goes wrong when it comes to his approval rating, the economy, etc. Trump views the stock market as the economy. That's just the unfortunate reality here. And it's unfortunate because only 62% of Americans as a whole own a stock in some form. And the real kicker here is a bulk of what that stock is comes from 401ks. And really, one of the problems that I want to make known here right away when it comes to this is there's a generational gap happening right now. It's unfortunate timing for Trump that it's happening, but what we're seeing is you have the under 40 voters and the over 40 voters. You have the most selfish, greedy generation of all time, the boomers, who are used to getting their own way with everything, who sacrifice their own children's success for theirs instead. Ate their children at their children's expense so that they could live well and own a vacation home while owning a regular home, while retiring, while living Social Security, all of that jazz. So, all that stuff we'll never get to see as young people. Under 40 voters are fucked, and we know it. And we're in what's called the fourth turning right now. And so when Trump mentions the stock market in the golden age, it's the 70-year-olds who say, oh my God, yes, this economy is wonderful. That's because they're the ones that make up the bulk of the 401k holders that have had that 401k invested in the stock market for decades now. On top of that, they get their entitlements that we'll never get, like Social Security. Like I said, they pull equity out of their home that they bought for a fraction of the price that it's now worth. And so the boomer Republicans, they literally don't understand this. And in truth, they don't actually care. They've lied to themselves now enough over the years to where they've convinced themselves that millennials are just spending their money too foolishly and aren't working hard enough to be able to do as well as they did. Little do they understand that they were literally privileged enough to be born during the best economic times this country very likely has ever seen. They're the generation that now has it better than their parents and also has it better than their children. And all of the data out there supports this. When it comes to 401k holders, only 50% of the current workforce holds 401ks. On top of that, when we discuss Social Security, we're now at a 2-to-1 ratio of workers to Social Security entitlement receivers, as opposed to when Social Security was started 90 years ago now. That ratio was like 48-to-1. There were 48 workers to every one Social Security recipient. It's now 2-to-1. Social Security is going to implode. It's eroding our national debt. It's weakening our economy. And the boomers are the last generation to prosper off of this. But so that's the problem with Trump focusing on the stock market. That's the problem when you have Trump go and say, well, I want the housing market numbers to go up because people who own homes deserve to feel like they're wealthy. No, they don't actually. They already own the home. I know there's the whole pull the equity out thing. I know there's the whole sell it for a higher price than you bought it for. But the fact of the matter is the boomers have done well enough. Now it's time to focus on the younger generations. And this is how it should always be. Why are we prioritizing a generation that's all going to be dead in the next 20 to 30 years when we're literally not focusing on the generation that'll be around for the next 30, 40, 50, 60 years? The future of this country is being sacrificed still for the old timers who are finished. It makes no sense. And that's what really needs to change here. Under 35-year-olds, so only about 50% of the workforce has a 401k. And then when you look at the under 35-year-old demographic, only 50% of them have a 401k. So when Trump touts the stock market and says we're in a golden age now, look at the Dow Jones and the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ, it's not resonating with young people, and it's only resonating with boomers. And the boomers, in all honesty, are the type of voter that will vote Republican no matter what because they believe in towing the party line more. It's the young people that are more radicalized. It's the young people that literally believe that if this administration doesn't live up to its promises, they should lose the midterms. I'm spiteful enough to say that myself. If this doesn't improve, if we hit midterms and I'm still unsatisfied with this administration, I'm staying my ass home. I'm sitting on the couch. I'll very likely live stream the midterm election night. By then, I'll probably do it on my computer at home with my actual fancy microphone, as opposed to being in my car where I live. I live in my car. So I'll live stream it then. I'll honestly, guys, listen, this will piss off boomers. I'll laugh my ass off as I watch a blue wave be ushered in because this administration is failing us and they fucking deserve to lose. That's the young voter mindset. And if you think I'm a radical, if you think I'm a maverick and that I'm a one and one when it comes to young people feeling that way, you're sorely mistaken. What we're witnessing with these young people is a collective thought that's forming, especially amongst Gen Zers and Gen Z men, but half of the millennial men as well. Older millennials they're kind of gay. They're all married. You know, they're henpecked by their wife. They cucked out. They got kids. They're pretending life is good. Maybe they squeaked out enough to own a home by now. Younger millennials are fucked. Gen Zers are super fucked. So we're witnessing this now as an emerging thought amongst young men, spiteful. And in all the right ways. Because guess what? Republicans don't deserve your votes right off the bat. They have to earn it. That's where the boomers don't believe that. So we're prioritizing a generation in the boomers that are finished in life. They already sacrificed their own kids, essentially, economically, so that they could prosper even more. And they're going to vote Republican anyway. It's the young people you need to win over, and the young people you should be prioritizing as the future of this country that are still being ignored, and that as a result, Trump is now the most unpopular with ever. And that's where we all stand on that. Liar, says Dan mention whatever. Who cares? Thanks for your thought-provoking comment. Neither party deserves the vote, says Scruffy. Right now, I agree with that. Feelings, LOL. What a joke. Feelings don't get the job done. Well, somebody needs to tell that to Trump and this administration because they're not getting the job done, are they? The 213447 Lucid Dev team says anyone who stands against Israel is our vote. Well, that's funny you should say that because that's the next topic that I had lined up here. The Trump foreign policy. And right off the bat, I'm going to tell you my stance on Israel and the Middle East. I'm divorced in my mind from the region. I have what's called Middle East fatigue. I grew up at a time, I'm just old enough to remember what life was like in America before 9/11 and the Middle East War, and how much better it seems back then. And sure, childhood nostalgia plays a role in that and probably makes it seem like it was even better. But I look at even shows like The Sopranos, for instance. And this may seem silly to go to entertainment as an example of this, but when you look at The Sopranos and when they were starting to record The Sopranos, the first 3 seasons before 9/11, the 4th season and the 5th and the 6th after it, there's a dramatic tone shift in our entertainment even that reflects this narrative that I'm telling you now. Things got way worse during the Middle East War in this country as a whole. America hit dark times. For the first time ever, we felt vulnerable. We were attacked on our own property. And I'm not going to go into the conspiracy theory of 9/11. I'm just here to state objectively, this is what happened to our culture. And I experienced that all as a child. On top of that, I experienced it all as a child who grew up during the Middle East War in high school and beyond into life, a war that just seemed to never end. And truthfully, when you look at the Middle East region, when you look at it from even a biblical standpoint, if you believe in Jesus and God and the Bible, you understand something very important. Peace in the Middle East is not promised until the end times. That place is a hellhole. They're in constant conflict with each other. On top of that, the Monroe Doctrine was written for this reason as well. All of these smart people that ran this country in the 1800s, they looked at our country on a geographical perspective and they said, you know what? The Atlantic Ocean separates us. The Pacific Ocean separates us. We have advance warning of any incoming attacks. The Barbary Coast has already happened. We've driven these people out of our country for the most part. And that is a whole world away. It's the old world. It's outdated. It's boring. It's depressing over there. It sucks. We're the new world. We should focus on the Western Hemisphere. We should focus on expanding here in the West. We should focus on controlling the West. And we should leave the old world and the East to their own devices. And I agree with the Monroe Doctrine heavily. So I'm divorced from the Middle East. I don't care if Israel exists as a nation. I'm not here to be anti-Israel. I'm just here to tell you my stance on this when it comes to not just Israel, but Ukraine as well, for instance. Ukraine's not a part of NATO. And of course, Eastern Ukraine or Western Ukraine, they want to be. Ukraine is split right now. I don't care about Ukraine, bottom line. I don't care about Israel as far as, them existing. They can exist, but when a country exists, it exists on the premise of being able to defend its own sovereignty. And the whole fact of the matter is, if our economy here locally was doing well, if our cost of living was phenomenal, if our average median rent rate was very low, like it was for our boomer parents, if we could go out and fill up a whole tank of gas for $20 instead of 80, all of that jazz, it would be a different story. People would be not as focused on the fact that we send billions of dollars of aid to all of these countries. It would go over a little bit easier. Objectively speaking, you could still have an opinion on that regardless, but objectively speaking, it would be differently perceived than it is now, where young people, and this is the divide that I want to talk about here, the under 45 voter versus the over 45 voter in age, there's a massive divide on this when it comes to Israel, actually, is the one that really is tracked here. But I'm assuming the same applies to Ukraine overall as well. And that is, of course, it's a 40-point divide. So under 45 voters they're only +2 in favorability for Bibi Netanyahu and how he's handling everything. Whereas it's the over 45 voters that are, plus, I wrote it down here. They're like plus 16 or some insane amount. There's a massive difference is the point. I forgot to write down the exact point number, but the over 45 people are much more in approval of this stuff than the under 40. Hey, Keystone Liberty's here. Oh, you retracted the message though. Welcome though, Keystone Liberty. Good to have you in, man. It's the same for Ukraine. I actually wrote down the under 40 voters when it comes to Ukraine. very likely only at a 45% approval of funding Ukraine and helping Ukraine and sending aid to Ukraine. It very likely could even be lower than 45%. This is literally because of fatigue for the old world right now. We're at a point right now, like I said, Americans are suffering enough domestically. We have to fix our shit. You cannot, it's the equivalent of helping out. It's the equivalent of loaning out money to a friend when you're literally like in debt and behind on rent. It's like you have to prioritize yourself. And that's where America First comes in. That's where young people are starting to gravitate more towards isolationism, an America First agenda, prioritizing our own country. And that's the generation divide that we're witnessing, because it's always the people that are over 45, the old people that grew up with their old way of life, that think, "Oh no, we need to help these other countries out." It's a nice thought, but we just can't afford to. I think that's the bottom line here. That's the conclusion that I've come to. Israel should be able to support itself. Ukraine should be able to support itself. NATO, I point out NATO a lot for this reason as well. NATO has gone on for too long. It was only supposed to originally be around for 10 years. It's now 77 years old. NATO and all of our NATO allies should be the ones primarily dealing with helping Ukraine and Israel. Those countries are more in their backyard. They're literally an entire world away from America. And I understand that Israel's our ally, but at what point do we just say, sorry, we can't be sending all this help right now. We can't be focusing on this because there's so much wrong with our country. And the argument, of course, is, well, the Muslims, they want to take over the world and whatnot. I understand that argument. But then even domestically here, I point to a place like Dearborn, Michigan, and I say, well, guess what? We have an emerging Muslim colony breaking out in our country, in our own land again, currently, because of stupid, primarily white liberal women who feel like we owe it to the world to allow these fuckers into our country. So now we have a Dearborn, Michigan. Now we have Muslim mosques being built in Dallas, Texas. That's a new emerging trend as well. So once again, I point you to the fact that we need to follow through with this Monroe Doctrine and focus on the Western Hemisphere once again. We need to clean up our own country before we even consider helping other countries once again. A lot of our allies, they take a lot of money from us, and they need our support in a lot of things. And it's just like, we're just not in that position anymore. If you look at our national debt, if you look at our economy, our cost of living crisis, our affordability, the generational gap that's breaking out right now, we're in no position right now to be able to help these countries in the way that we're helping them, in my opinion. Keystone says, Israel is not our ally. Israel is our liability. Sometimes I'm not, it depends. I think, I do look at what happens a lot of times, and I think to myself, you know what? How would this be playing out if Israel didn't have us as an ally? I do look at it like that sometimes. Sometimes I do look at Israel in the light of like a 10-year-old or an 8-year-old who's like, short, small, and like picks on people 2 or 3 grades older than him, an 8-year-old who picks on a 12 or 13-year-old, knowing that his brother is 25 years old and can beat the shit out of anybody who beats him up, right? So I do wonder that sometimes, for sure. I wonder how things would look in the Middle East if Israel didn't have us as strong of an ally. So I think that's a fair assessment. I do. I think that's a fair way to look at it. I think it's very fair for people to wonder what it would be like if Israel couldn't count on us for military support. And that's the thing that bothers me the most, what we have going on with Iran again. I'm not convinced of our need to be dealing with Iran this way again. I'm just not sold on that as an American. I'm not super anti doing it because Iran is linked in with BRICS and China, and I love the idea of hurting China. And if we hurt Iran and their oil reserves, for instance, we would hurt China. So I'm not like 100% against it, but I'll tell you this, as a young millennial, I'll throw up in my mouth if we wind up doing a boots on the ground situation out there again. I just will. I just can't tolerate it anymore. I'm so sick of it. I'm super sick of it. PTS Demon says the USA is back. The question I have about Israel is why? Why do they think they're going to what do they think they're going to accomplish with these actions? You have to understand you have to understand their agenda over there. And their agenda really is, it's really based off of the Bible, in all honesty, and it's based off of a long-standing rivalry between them. them and the Muslims. And really, I do think that Israel is it's called the Greater Israel. It's called the Greater Israel region. They want to expand. They want to claim back the land that they believe is in their birthright. And in some ways, I respect their resolve over this. I wish Americans viewed America the same way that the Jews view Israel. I wish we had that nationalism here in this country. We should be able to look at a place like Mexico and Cuba and be like, that should be fucking ours. Greenland, we shouldn't have all these Americans out here who are like, Trump is being so mean to Greenland. We should leave Greenlanders' sovereignty alone. There's 60,000 Greenlanders there, and not all of them want to be in American territory. I think this is despicable. It's like, fuck that. Greenland should be ours. Mexico should be ours. We should absorb Cuba. We should just outright absorb Venezuela. All of Venezuela oil should be ours. I wish we were like that. And so when it comes to Israel and their history, they have what's called the Greater Israel region, and that's what they want, I believe. They want to expand and they want to take over that region. So I think that's really what's at play here geopolitically, and it's why they're targeting always Iran, because Iran is the superpower of the Middle East, in all honesty. And they are part of the BRICS nation, so they are, by default, America's enemy. But it's very complicated. I don't support Biden at all. Badger Wilson. I didn't vote for him. I hated him. Ice is melting in the Arctic, says PTSD man. Exactly. Well, the Greenland thing is a multifold thing. It's geostrategically important for us to have it for the creation of the Golden Dome, because it perfectly triangulates a defensive position for us when you combine Greenland, Alaska, and the lower 48. On top of that, yes, sea routes will be opening up there. We want to control those sea routes. And then there's the rare earth minerals that are in Greenland as well. So there's really 3 reasons we want Greenland. And all of those reasons make the most sense. So we should just take it outright. But like I said, as with everything with Trump, sometimes power shouldn't be negotiated. But Trump's biggest fault is he views everything as a negotiation, including power. And what we really should have done is just told Denmark we're taking it. But Trump negotiated with them instead. So we have a slightly better deal up in Greenland than what we had in the 1950s when we made the original one. Now we can expand our military presence via military bases up there without calling Denmark first to ask for permission. It's borderline sovereignty, but we really needed to own Greenland outright, and we still don't. So not happy. And Greenland, the Greenland thing was one of the only good things Trump did from a foreign policy perspective. Same with Venezuela. That's why I actually have written down here as well. I don't care about Thailand and Cambodia skirmishes. Trump likes to tout that off. Oh, I deserve a Nobel Peace Prize. I ended 8 wars. Like, most of those were skirmishes. Good for you for ending them, kind of. But look what happens. We end them, and then within months they start back up because these countries hate each other. And I view, you can say Israel and Iran are playing out on a world scale that will affect everybody. You can argue that at the very least for why America maybe should be involved. I would still maybe argue against that largely, but you could argue that and it would make somewhat sense. You could even argue Ukraine and Russia, and you could say, listen, if Russia gets Ukraine, they're going to have more power. They're expanding their borders constantly, whatever. I don't care enough about that too much, but you could argue that, and I would have a harder time critiquing the argument. But when we're talking about a skirmish like Thailand and Cambodia, listen, I don't give a fuck. It just doesn't matter to me at all. I just don't care. Like, good for you for ending it, but, look, it's starting back up. Why are we focused on that when we need to focus domestically here in America? And again, that's the Monroe Doctrine. We just need to buckle down. We don't need to become isolationists. We need to maintain our presence across the globe with our military. So I'm not for pulling our military troops out of the old world entirely. We should establish a dominant presence there because we're the world's hyperpower. We're an empire. So I'm all in favor of that. But, these wars, I'm not in favor. They're costly. They're expensive. If we go to war with Iran, like a full war, it's going to be trillions of dollars that we don't have. That's my biggest fear. That will ruin us. I think that would finish off our economy. We're still paying back the Iraq war, which was a mostly fruitless war, and we have debt on that Iraq war that's going to amount to us paying $6 trillion. Unacceptable and absurd. Finally, I just wanted to talk about Law and Order, which is the fourth and final problem here with Trump's approval rating and why he's so unpopular right now. I'm not going to talk about it at length like I did last episode where I covered Pam Bondi and how much of a disgrace she is, but I'll summarize it as this. The Epstein files is a disaster. It's been botched by this administration. They continuously look worse and worse in how they're handling it. They're still trying to cover up shit when they shouldn't be. And truthfully, if Trump would have went all in on releasing them, he'd be a hero by now. People would be praising him for the transparency that he promised. If he then used his DOJ to go after the perpetrators and co-conspirators like Les Wexner, possibly Bill Clinton, etc., he'd be even more praised. Instead, we're getting Trump now saying he thinks it's a tragedy that this is out there, and he's defending the Clintons. The man who campaigned against Hillary Clinton and said she'd be in jail, he's now defending her as a smart woman and saying he always liked how Bill Clinton handled stuff conversationally with him, and he got along good with Bill Clinton. This is not the same Trump at all that we had in his first term. Not at all. And that's another thing that is causing, I think, a lot of his voter base to sour on him. Once again, generational gap, especially the youth. On top of that, Doge. Trump was the most popular with young people, under 40, under 30 especially, when Elon Musk was heading up Doge and they were seeking out corruption and fraud within the government. In fact, from a popularity standpoint, Doge was overwhelmingly popular with Americans, despite what mainstream media wanted you to believe. I think the number was close to 70% of Americans at the very least, even if they didn't like Elon and Doge. They said at the very least it was 70% or close to that of Americans thought we should be looking for government bloat, fraud, corruption, and waste, and we should be eliminating it. Instead, we got the opposite. We got Elon doing it for a little bit and then ultimately being ousted from this administration, which is exactly what he was. And then on top of that, we have indictment failures and a failure overall from this Trump Department of Justice to deliver on justice. Letitia James, Pam Bondi failed to indict Letitia James twice inside of 1 week. By contrast, Jerry Nadler actually pointed this out in the Pam Bondi hearing yesterday. By contrast, in 2016, the Trump DOJ had 150,000 different cases going off of grand jury indictments. Only 6 of them had experienced a situation where the grand jury refused to indict. Now we have Pam Bondi, and the most incompetent attorney general probably of all time, failing to indict Letitia James twice in 1 week. Also, just recently failing to indict Mark Kelly and Alyssa Slotkin, the two main members of the seditious 6 Democrats who went on X and put out the same message kind of video encouraging our military to disobey unlawful orders. They said it was all about reminding soldiers of their right to do so. It was really about borderline committing sedition against the president because they don't like the Insurrection Act and they don't like the mass deportations. Well, a grand jury failed to indict them yesterday as well. We have no deep state arrests. The closest we got was James Comey, who was able to walk into the courthouse on his own accord, sneak in through a side door, evade the press, plead not guilty, and then leave without anybody really even knowing it. No questions were asked. He left, and we've never heard anything since. Comey, Brennan, Clapper, none of them. Adam Schiff, none of them. No deep state arrests. We're now in over 1 year. No deep state arrests. And they say good cases take time to build. But the Biden DOJ inside of their first year were targeting former Trump administration officials and succeeding in arresting them, frog marching them, and ultimately imprisoning some of them. And they were only let out when Trump re-won, and they were pardoned. So I don't want to hear good cases take time to build. Pam Bondi's not building the cases. She doesn't care. This is the worst attorney general of all time. And so when you mix all these problems in, you have a radicalized, ever increasingly radicalized youth that is more and more dissatisfied with President Donald Trump and this administration, many of whom gave the Republicans a chance for the first time in their life by voting for Trump and are now overwhelmingly disappointed. So yes, Trump's approval rating, according to some polls, 36%. Even right-leaning polls have his approval rating underwater by as much as 7 or 8 points. And this is, for all the previously stated reasons, that is why. The economy is still not great for the everyday American. Trump's no longer delivering on his immigration reform policies. He's not delivering on law and order. He views the stock market as the economy. It's only positively affecting boomers who are dying off. Boomers are hitting the deceased line. Meanwhile, the youth is being neglected, and they're not witnessing any law and order. The youth prioritize that. They prioritize justice and law and order and cost of living. Economic populism and law and order will win elections, and we're not getting any of that from this current Trump administration. All the while, we have an increased attention being sent overseas now. Trump is more focused on foreign policy, more focused on Israel, Iran, Ukraine, and Russia, Thailand, Cambodia, all of these countries that Americans, young ones especially, no longer care about. And that's it. It's a disaster. And the sad reality is, the Trump administration could fix this with a snap of their fingers. It could all be reversed within weeks. They could undo what they're doing. They could just listen to the people. But instead, you have Trump isolated on his own social media network platform, Truth Social. He puts out these Truth Social posts. It's all Truth Social is filled with Republican MAGA sycophants who like everything he says, comment positively on everything he says. And then he has Susie Wiles, his manager, who's not allowing him to honestly hear the proper messaging. And that's the sad reality of all of it. I'll take a look at some chats. Foreign policy is how we're decreasing our spending. Yeah, I don't know about that. We're funding a lot of these countries. Ukraine is Russian Taiwan. Yes, that's true. He doesn't support Trump. He is done with him. He is an open-minded Christian nationalist, and I watch him because I like his blunt honesty. And I said, thanks, Scruffy. I appreciate that. That's a good summary of what I am right now. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm very conservative. Don't get me wrong. It's just I have two eyeballs, and I have a working brain. I'm not a sycophant. I'm not a cultist. And MAGA, I've been saying this, and I've been kind of wrong. MAGA's not actually a cult in principle. It's a coalition that was formed in 2015 out of desperation for overriding the former Republican neocon establishment. That's MAGA at its core. It's a coalition. But the problem is you do have a lot of cultists in the movement now that kiss Trump's ass on everything, and they want to pretend now that everything's going a lot better than it actually is. And I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. When Trump does something good, I'm happy to report on it. I love the Venezuela shit. I liked the idea of getting Greenland, even though we copped out on that. So there's still some good being spilled in here, but it's just a far fetch from what we were promised. Because, and what's most disappointing is, honestly, if we were getting what we were promised, Trump would be doing great. His popularity, all of his campaign promises are infinitely more popular than he is currently. I said that earlier. Stop everything. We have a super chat. 2009 lifeguard. You're too generous, man. I appreciate you. You say, is that a Batman toboggan? It is, actually. I couldn't find my main beanie hat today, so I had to use this one. This is one that I haven't worn in years, but I lost my main beanie hat. So, what retard wants to have Greenland? Thank you for the super chat, by the way, 2009 lifeguard. W for you, man. Appreciate you so much. Derek's 978 leaving a stupid chat, it looks like. What retard wants to have Greenland even though they're a NATO ally and de facto our satellite state? Yeah, listen, you fucking retard. Listen. Greenland is infinitely important. It's the most geostrategically important country for us to have for probably the next century. The polar ice caps are melting a little bit more, as we see trending every couple thousand years on this planet. So sea routes are going to open up. Those sea routes are going to be used for trade. We want to control trade. So in combination of having Greenland and controlling the opening up sea routes in Greenland, as well as taking back the Panama Canal, we will control all port of entry for trade on this Western hemisphere. Also, Greenland is directly in the middle of the Arctic pretty much, which gives us the first line of defense against Russia. Because if Russia's going to fire long-range missiles at us, it's not going to shoot at us on a flat 2D map that you're used to looking at, where it travels all the way over the Pacific Ocean and lands somewhere in California. Russia will be launching rockets at us over the Arctic because the Earth is spherical. So the shortest distance is over the Arctic. Greenland is way high up in there. It's almost dead center in the Arctic, in fact. And Greenland triangulates perfectly with Alaska. Because the other retard argument here is, well, we already have Alaska, so we're Russia's neighbor, and Alaska's how we can keep an eye on Russia. No, because Russia won't be launching rockets from that direction. They'll be launching them from over the Arctic. When you have Greenland, when you have Alaska, and when you have the lower 48, you have a perfectly triangulated formula for defense. That's what will allow us to build the Golden Dome, which is the equivalent of Israel's Iron Dome, kind of, but at a much larger scale. And the purpose of that, the way the Golden Dome works, the way the Iron Dome currently works, most people don't know, it doesn't shoot down rockets as they're about to land on you. The Iron Dome currently works in the fashion of it has to be able to see or detect where the rocket was launched from and when. So Greenland's positioning up in the Arctic will allow us to be closer to Russia in the good way, where we can determine if and when, God forbid, they decide to launch a rocket at us, we can have our Golden Dome work similarly to the way the Iron Dome works. On top of that, purely from a resource standpoint, Greenland's full of rare earth minerals that we could use. So there's really three main reasons we want Greenland, and all of them are perfectly justifiable, especially when you stack them all back to back to back. You get the full picture. There's only 57,000 Greenlanders, by the way, so their opinion on their sovereignty is irrelevant, or at least it should be. They're also not a NATO ally. They're owned by Denmark, which is a NATO ally. And the only reason Denmark owns Greenland is because they gave us control over Greenland during the wars when they were basically losing over there to Germany. We kept Greenland safe for them and then gave it back to them like idiots. We should have just kept it. So, your lack of geostrategical understanding is not my problem. It just makes you a fucking stupid idiot. And then on top of it, you don't know your history at all either. And you just don't understand strategy, resources. You just actually clearly have a fundamental lack of understanding on how the world works. So in that case, you should subscribe to this channel because you need to be educated. Do you have hope Russia will go back to democracy in the next 50 years? Yes. I also have hope that we will lift sanctions off Russia and stop treating them as poorly as we have been. Russia is merely a boogeyman. Their military is largely a paper tiger. We're seeing that unfold now as they can't even take Ukraine, which is a corrupt, decimated country. Russia has barely taken any ground in Ukraine, and it's been years now, and they've lost tons of lives when it comes to their soldiers. Their military is mostly a paper tiger. If they didn't have nuclear power, they'd be nothing. And then on top of it, they would be a valuable trading ally to us. But instead, what we did was we drove them right into the hands of China, and China is the world's real enemy. China wants global domination, and now Russia has to work with China more because we sanctioned them over a stupid fucking corrupt country like Ukraine. So ideally in the future, the near future, we would lift sanctions off of them and resume trading with Russia and welcome them a little bit more. Not as a full-blown ally. I just got done ranting about Greenland and how we need it to protect from Russia. So I'm a little shady on Russia still. I'm a little skeptical, but we shouldn't be just forcing them to be an enemy either. Vladimir Putin may be corrupt. He may be evil behind scenes. He may have done some really bad things. But when it comes to a global scale, Vladimir Putin is a lot more diplomatic than we give him credit for. And we won't always be so lucky to have Russia being ruled by somebody like him. Other rulers have tried to overthrow him in the past that were way more anti-American than Putin was, and we're actually lucky that they failed. And so we should be taking advantage of the fact that we have a diplomatic person, a somewhat reasonable person like Putin, where he can be negotiated with. And truthfully, I think Putin has always wanted to be closer with America than what we've allowed him to be. So, I don't know. We've been sold a lie on Russia. We've been told that they're a boogeyman when they're just a make-believe one. That's my honest take on Russia. If Russia's a paper tiger, why take Greenland? Because they have long-range missiles and they have nuclear power. So they're still a threat. I'm not saying they're not a threat. I'm just saying overall their military is a paper tiger. We're watching that unfold with Ukraine. And why not take Greenland is the better question. Will Russia always be a paper tiger? China is trying to get their hands on the Arctic as well, by the way. They're trying to call themselves a near-Arctic country now so they can be part of the Arctic Convention. They want to be one of the countries included when it comes to Arctic talks. And so if everything's moving to the Arctic in the future, the real question is why not take Greenland? Do you really want to live in a rainbow fantasy happy land where, oh, well, Russia's a paper tiger, so that means we don't need Greenland, so let's just not take it. Why not take it? Is the better question. Try to answer that one. Try to answer it without saying, well, there's 57,000 people that live there and they're ice fishermen, and they insist that entire ginormous block of ice is theirs. Shut the fuck up. So we need Greenland. See, all these people, you're not understanding. You just don't understand geostrategy. You just don't understand it. Are you the son of Alex Jones? Yes, but don't tell anybody that because he had me out of wedlock. Why are you cucks so cozy with Russia when they're literally an authoritarian government? I don't know. Gee, why would we ever want to be cozy with any country that's an authoritarian government? Should we only ally ourselves with governments that at least masquerade as democracies? Is that how you think it should work? Is that how like that is such a brain dead take. I can't believe you said that. Like, if we could get peace with North Korea, for instance, and be assured that they're not an enemy, should we take that, or should we say, fuck you, you nuclear power? I hope you continue hating America and possibly decide to launch nukes on us one day because you're a dictatorship. Them being a dictatorship is not Americans' problems. That's their people's problem. And if they want to rise up against their government there in a revolutionary form and overthrow it, good for them. I actually hope that happens. But it doesn't. It's also not my problem. Why do we trade with China? We still trade with and use China for our manufacturing. Are you outraged over that? Or is China masquerading just enough as a democracy for you to be okay with it? It's time to give Russia a big American hug, says 2009 Lifeguard. Maybe not a hug, but a firm handshake where it's like, hey, let's get back to a little bit of trade here. Russia has oil that we could benefit from. We could try to pull them away from China a little bit more. It would be more beneficial. New sub says DCMDCM0224. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, definitely be sure to like the stream if you haven't already and subscribe to American Advocates for more content like this. No, your lack of IQ makes you regurgitating Trump talk. Does any of this sound like Trump talk to you, you retard? When did you stop by on this stream? Did you stop by just a few seconds ago? Because this whole stream has been me telling everybody why Trump deserves the low approval rating that he has and how he's not fulfilling his campaign promises. Holy shit. You guys are, it's another level. There's like this thing. I genuinely believe that most people are not fully conscious. I believe most people are subhuman. They have eyeballs, but no soul behind them. They just walk about life responding only emotionally to stuff, like what a lot of this swine in my chat do. Oh, I can't believe you said this. I'm going to type in chat right now. He's an idiot. Oh! Like, stop, breathe. Stop and think for a second. Try to process what I'm telling you. That's how you learn. Try to critically think without your emotions playing a part. That's my advice to you. Find God. Find your soul again. You believe it or not, you don't have to be so reactionary to everything in your environment. Unreal. We already have bases there dumped for brains. We need more. We need to own it. Denmark is not to be trusted. None of our NATO allies are to be trusted. The second we give them any pushback on anything and decide we want something from them instead of us only giving to them, they all ran to China. NATO's they're only allies on paper. They're not our actual allies anymore. So we need to own Greenland outright. That's the only way to ensure that we can use Greenland completely the way we want to and need to. Ownership is not the same as permission. And there's no reason we should need permission from Denmark, who couldn't defend Greenland if their life depended on it. I need to remind you, Denmark folded in both world wars within 6 months each time. They're pathetic. They barely have a military at all. And yeah, NATO they're part of NATO. Oh, they're part of NATO. 2 million strong soldiers. There's just no comparison. We're the hyperpower. Our military is bar none. We're the world's hyperpower. If we really, really threw down with them, we win. It's not even close. Our Air Force and Navy combined, we win. We slaughter them. Genuine question. Couldn't we just use our influence over Denmark to station troops in Greenland or influence Danish policy to be more in line with U.S. interest? It's a good thought, but like I just stated, our NATO allies are really only allies on paper. What the Danish have been doing with Greenland to try to persuade them to not be in line with Trump is feed them. They've been force feeding them on their TVs their anti-American, anti-Trump propaganda. It's so funny. It's like Gen Z everywhere is based like this. You see videos of Gen Z boys in Greenland, however few of them live there, and they have Trump hats on. But it's the boomers that have TDS. They live in Greenland, and they're convinced that Trump, the evil orange fascist, is going to take Greenland and ruin their way of life. So What can you do other than just take Greenland and disregard their opinion in general? Because there's only 57,000 of them. It's an inconsequential amount of people, in all honesty. This is just the way the world works. The liberals can't handle that. And by the way, the liberals who are anti-border are the ones that now care about Greenland's sovereignty and borders. So it's also just hypocritical. If you're anti-border, then America by right should just be able to send as many people as we want up to Greenland and occupy all of it, right? Like borders aren't a thing. Borders are imaginary, right? So we should just flood Greenland with soldiers and military, and that's how the world should be working anyway, according to liberals. All right, let me scroll up to the top here. Exactly. They're already part of NATO, so full ownership is not needed. No, full ownership is needed. Are you not listening? Are you not processing this? NATO's not our ally. The NATO countries are not our allies anymore. Emmanuel Macron at the World Economic Forum decided he wanted to cozy up with China and openly said it. Prime Minister Mark Carney said he wants to increase trade with China and give them national security secrets from Canada. NATO's not our ally. I don't understand what you're not understanding here. We need a new alliance to form. We need to exit NATO. We need to take Greenland, exit NATO, and re-ally ourselves with countries that actually like us. Countries like Japan, El Salvador, Argentina, whatchamacallit, Italy. Italy was the only NATO country that didn't participate in their grandstanding against Trump and Greenland. Italy actually likes us. Japan loves us. Japan's going to be our new strategical Israel when it comes to the war, the Cold War that we're in with China. But NATO is useless to us. NATO is completely useless. They're a drag on our economy. They take our money to subsidize their societies. And they're not even grateful for it. All right, that's going to be about it. I can't deal with swine like this for too long. It really just gives me a headache. Like, you know, there's just such an IQ gap between you guys and me. Like, sorry, you guys are at like 50 IQ. I can only teach so much before I look at chats of people who aren't getting it. NATO is our ally, A-R-E, our ally, A-L-L-I-E, ally. Like, give me a fucking break. I'm done, guys. Thanks so much for everybody who tuned in, though. Be sure to like the stream if you haven't already. And if you missed what the point of the stream was, Trump's approval rating in the toilet, why he deserves it to be that low, what he's doing to be that low, why it's collapsing, go back and rewatch it. You can leave a comment on this video after the fact. If it's worth my time, I'll respond to it. But I don't cast pearls to swine. And, well, most of you are just swine down there. Most of you are just idiotic, parasitic swine who can't comprehend the knowledge that I'm dropping. So, with that being said, for the rest of you, my super chatter, 2009 lifeguard, hell yes, have a great evening. You too, thanks for the super chat once again. MVP of the stream once again. Thanks to all the supporters. Glory to America, the most powerful nation in the world world's hyperpower, best nation on the planet, by far. Glory to this country. God bless the USA, and God bless the good ones in the chat. The rest of you, fuck off.